Good morning. My name is Matt Brewster, and I'm here today to talk about the district's strategies for building the next generation of leaders for the Newark Public Schools. So, one initiative that the district is involved in deals with the Wallace Foundation. The Wallace Foundation examined the efforts of 6 urban school districts to put in place a systematic process for the strategic management of school leaders. And this research looked at what they were able to accomplish and what happened in schools as a result. And so the big takeaway was that principal pipelines can help build and improve student achievement. And so sometimes people don't really understand what that means, but because the principal is at the top of the school and what happens with the kids is in the classroom. But the research really indicates that the school leader is the lever for change and the lever for improvement in the schools. And as a matter of fact, the differences and the benefits of principal pipelines are more pronounced when the school is at the lowest level of achievement. In other words, the neediest schools improve the best when they get new leadership. And so the districts that the Wallace Foundation studied were Charlotte, North Carolina, Denver, Colorado, Gwinnett County, Georgia, Hillsborough, Florida, New York City Public Schools, and Prince George's County, Maryland. If you know anything about those districts, you know that they are very, very similar in demographics to what we have in Newark. And so what the Wallace Foundation did is they created a PLC, a professional learning community of leaders from all over the country. And there were about 31 states, as well as the island of Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C., that were involved in this PLC. And Newark was invited to participate in this PLC. In the fall of 2019, myself, along with Deputy Superintendent Nicole T. Johnson, went over to New York City, where we were introduced to representatives from all of these cities from across the country, as well as the Wallace Foundation facilitators, where we learned about the value of the PLC and what we would do to get the Newark Public Schools started in our principal pipeline work. And so one of the things that we learned there is that the Wallace Foundation synthesized their work into 7 domains. And when people talk about principal pipelines, and the whole process of a principal pipeline, they usually only focus on one of these domains, but I'm going to share with you what all 7 of them are. Number 1 is leader standards, meaning that the work that you do for school leaders needs to be grounded in some sort of standard. We in Newark have chosen the PCEL standards, which are the standards that the state of New Jersey uses, and at some point we know that we may need to modify them a little bit, but we needed to have a foundation upon which to start. So we started with the PCEL standards. The second domain is high quality pre-service preparation, meaning in order to get principals where we need them to be, we have to give them some PD before they become leaders. So high quality pre-service preparation. The third domain is selective placement and hiring. In other words, if we're going to hire a good principal, we need to make sure that we selectively place them and strategically put them where they need to be, in a place that is conducive to their skill set. Then the fourth domain is on-the-job evaluation and support. So we've prepared them, we've selected them, we've placed them. Now we need to give them professional development in their job. So on-the-job evaluation and support is extremely important for this process. The next domain is called principal supervisors. Most people know principal supervisors as assistant superintendents. That's what we call them here in Newark. But in other parts of the country, the person that supervises principals is literally called the principal supervisor. So when you hear principal supervisor in regard to the Wallace Foundation principal pipeline process, know that principal supervisor refers to what we call assistant superintendents. Then there's the sixth domain is the leader tracking system. This is a system that allows the district to collect data around our principal candidates and match those candidates to particular vacancies that exist. So in other words, if you're a candidate who is bilingual, and we know that we have a school that needs a bilingual person, we know that this system can help us identify and match you quickly. Now that's a very, very simplistic example, but that just shows you the value of having a leader tracking system, something that allows us to very quickly and easily match candidates with vacancies. And then finally, the last domain is systems and sustainability. In other words, if we're going to build a principal pipeline, then we need to have the mechanisms in place to sustain it from years to come. So, as part of the principal pipeline PLC, what the district had to do was assess itself in regard to those 7 domains, right? And so we were given a facilitator who came in and sat with what we called, and what Wallace calls, a self-study team. And the district self-study team was comprised of the superintendent himself, the deputy superintendent, the director of staff development, which is me, the executive director of human resource services, 1 assistant superintendent, and 1 principal supervisor, assistant superintendent, and 4 principals. So that was the team of individuals who sat down over the course of several months and assessed the district's capabilities along the continuum for those 7 domains. So it was a self-study team that looked at those 7 domains, and we assessed where we were in terms of implementation of those 7 domains. So I don't want to go into a whole lot of detail about what we found out during that process, because that's not what this conversation is about. This conversation is more about that second domain, high quality pre-service preparation. So I'm going to focus there. So in terms of high quality pre-service preparation, here are some key practices that the district engages in. Number 1, as a part of that Wallace Foundation PLC, we developed a 5-year pipeline plan that shows how we're going to implement those 7 domains over the course of the next 5 years. We're currently in year 3 of that process, and it's going well, but of course, as you know, in terms of dealing with the pandemic, there are some bumps and obstacles, but we are working through them. Again, Domain 2 speaks to high quality pre-service preparation, so I'm going to focus again on that. But the district also, in terms of pre-service preparation, partnered with Montclair State University to create the Nork Montclair Leadership Pipeline for aspiring principals or aspiring leaders. In other words, if you were a person who worked in the district and you were a teacher or a coach or an interventionist or something like that, and you wanted to get your master's degree in ed administration to become, and in leadership to become an administrator, a vice principal or principal, you could apply to this program and you would have the advantage of a system that was taught by university professors as well as district leaders to help you advance to get your master's degree. And so the great thing about that program, again, is that it was co-taught, that district leaders and university professors teaching that program. Some other key practices. So again, if you get accepted to this program, there's a little bit of an incentive for you to go. There's some scholarship money that can help you with your tuition fees and things of that nature. But in that program, there's an internship that happens at the end of year 1. And what we did was we worked with the university to make that internship part of our summer program. In other words, in the summertime, our vice principals run our summer programs. And what we did is we have the people who are in the pipeline at Montclair, they work with those vice principals as teachers to assist, where they are learning the process of instructional supervision, they're learning the process of school operation, they're learning the process of supervising curriculum implementation. So it's a really, really great benefit because they're earning their college credit at the same time that they're able to work in the district to support our summer school programs. And then an added benefit to that is it gives us an opportunity to see our vice principals at work and how well they can support people who are aspiring leaders. So we have, in terms of what we do internally, so we talked about what happens at Montclair State, right? But internally, we also have candidates who already have administrative certification, or we have candidates who want to acquire admin certification but haven't gone to school yet. And so we've broken these 2 groups of people up into groups called aspiring leaders and rising leaders. Aspiring leaders are teachers, coaches, interventionists, maybe even school counselors for that matter, anyone who wants to be an administrator but does not yet have administrative certification. Those are aspiring leaders. The other group is called rising leaders. These are folks who are in any of those categories, teachers, counselors, coaches, interventionists, whatever the case may be. Some of them may already be vice principals or department chairpersons, but they aspire to the principalship. They want to be a principal one day. So that's our rising leaders group. So the 2 groups, again, the difference is one group cannot become administrators yet because they don't have certification. The other group already has their certification in hand, even though they might not be working in a leadership capacity, they have the certification. So the training and the preparation for those 2 groups is quite different. So what we did was, what I want to do now is pivot back to what happens at Montclair. So in the first cohort that began in the fall of 2020, these are, again, aspiring leaders who want to get admin certification. And we're starting to talk about what we're doing to support Black and Latino men to become leaders in our district, right? So in that first cohort, there was one Black or Latino male. Not great, right? Not great at all. In 2021, cohort 2, we had 3. Not great, but definitely getting better. In cohort 3, which started their schoolwork, their coursework this fall in 2022, there were 5. So as you can see, we noticed that there wasn't enough Black and Latino males in our program. We did some intentional work to try to support and try to recruit people of color, men of color, to become leaders. And we went from 1 to 3 to 5 in just a 3-year span that are in that program at Montclair. Again, not great, but we're definitely making progress, and we are proud of that progress. But we needed to do more, right? Because we knew that that's not enough Black and Latino men who are looking to become leaders in our district. So what we did was, under the superintendent's guidance, we created the Black Men and the Latino Men Rising Coalitions. And what these are, they are alliances for combined action to support male educators of color as candidates for future leadership roles in the district. So BMRC and LMRC for short. This is a group of Black and Latino men who want to become leaders and need support in that process, and we were there to provide them with that support. And so the BMRC met first. We met with the Black men first, and those meetings began in the spring of 2020, and they met all the way through the fall of 2021. They didn't meet all the time, they didn't meet every week or anything like that, but they met periodically, and we stayed in touch with them and provided them with different kinds of supports along the route. Then the LMRC, they began meeting separately in the fall of 2021, and met through the winter of 2022. So just the Latino men, again, finding out who they are, finding out what their needs are, and providing them with some support. Well, the superintendent realized that it was important to start with the groups being separate, but he wanted to bring them together. So in March of 2022, we had a major kickoff event, the BMRC LMRC event together. And the superintendent reached out to several prominent women. March is Women's History Month, right? The superintendent reached out to several prominent women here in the state of New Jersey and asked them to come in and meet with our Black and Latino men, meet with BMRC, LMRC, and show them how much support that they have from women across the state and how much they are needed and valued to be leaders in our district. And it was a phenomenal event, and you'll see the women that were selected as panelists for that session. And so what did they do at this session? Well, one of the things that we did was we asked them some very, very critical questions because we wanted to get their perspective, right? And so here's the first question. It talks about how male students of color, Black and Latino males, are overrepresented in disciplinary actions. They're overrepresented in special education. They're underrepresented in honors and AP courses and have lower graduation rates and higher dropout rates. And we wanted to hear from the brothers and the Latino brothers, why? What do you think contributes to that phenomenon? And we got some very, very interesting responses from them. The next question was around teaching as a whole. You know, we know that teaching is a noble profession, but why don't more high school or college students of color, especially males, aspire to be educators? Like, why don't brothers want to become teachers? And what strategies can be used to increase the numbers of male teachers and leaders of color? So we wanted that question to be put to the young men and have them respond to that question. And the third question is, where can males of color have the greatest impact? Do they have the greatest impact as mentors? Do they have the greatest impact as brothers, as fathers, as classroom teachers, as school administrators, or is there another place where they can be more representative? So we put those questions to the men, and we got some very, very interesting responses. And at the end of this presentation, there's going to be a QR code that you can scan where you can provide some of your responses to those very questions as well, because we'd love to hear some feedback from you. So again, the BMRC and LMRC, after we had that kickoff event last spring, we decided to bring them together again during this current school year in 2022-23. And so we've had one session scheduled for them already that took place on October the 19th. We have another session for them coming up on November the 15th. And so I bet you're asking, well, what are you doing with them during those sessions now that you have them together again? Well, we found a book called Becoming the Educator They Need by Robert Jackson. And the subtitle of that book is Strategies, Mindsets, and Beliefs for Supporting Black, Male, and Latino Students. Because our belief is if we can get these brothers who are teachers and school leaders to support Black students in school and Latino male students in school, maybe they will aspire to become teachers and school leaders themselves. So it's kind of like creating a cycle. And so this book, by Robert Jackson, we found was so powerful that we invited Robert to come in with us and facilitate some of these sessions. And Robert was here in person on October the 19th, and he's coming back in person on November the 15th. And there's some video clips in here from Robert that you'll get a chance to see if you click on the link in the PowerPoint, or I can send it to you if you don't, I don't know how. Maybe I should have put that on a QR code too. But anyway, that's beside the point. Okay, and so another thing that's going to come up on the QR code is I talked about some of the things that we're already doing to support Black and Latino males and increase the numbers as teachers and as leaders in our district. But we want to ask you, what recommendations, what suggestions do you have that you can give us to help us develop these numbers? And so if each of you who watches this presentation could give us 3 recommendations on what we could be doing differently to support our initiative to identify, recruit, prepare, and place Black and Latino males in our schools as teachers and as school leaders, we would greatly, greatly appreciate that. And so here's the QR code that is available for you. Again, you can answer those 3 questions that we posed to the young men at the BMRC LMRC kickoff event last spring. And you can also provide us with some feedback or some suggestions and recommendations that you have that can help us complete our task of identifying, supporting, recruiting, and placing more Black and Latino males in our schools as teachers and as school leaders. Okay? Thank you very much for your time, and best wishes.